My roommate is a human-shaped rat spirit. She's always mooching off us. From laundry detergent to snacks. And milk tea. She tried to sell me cosmetics worth only 2.5 yuan for 199 yuan. My skin broke out terribly after I reluctantly used it once. Yet, she was the first to burst into tears in class. You should have told me you have sensitive skin. So many people use my aunt's cosmetics without any trouble. Later, she asked to borrow my luxury clothing worth 100,000 yuan. After I turned her down, she drugged me and stole my clothes. When I confronted her, she shoved me down the stairs. You're so rich. What's wrong with letting me wear them for a bit? You're so stingy. Why don't you? Yusti. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my roommate moved into the dorm. Hello everyone. I am Linton. My aunt owns a beauty salon. These are skincare products I brought from her store. They're really effective. You should all try them. The moment I opened my eyes, there was Linton beaming as she shoved the items in her arms toward me. I looked closely. They were still those cheap skincare products she bought online for $999. In my past life, she'd also lied about her and being the big boss of some beauty institution, handing us cheap skincare products every few days, costing her $999, selling to me for $1.99. Not only did she sell us cheap skincare, but she also used the excuse of giving us discounts to constantly take advantage of us. Laundry detergent, body wash, shampoo. She'd never bought any of them. Even the 3,000 yuan skincare set I bought for myself. She'd scoop out huge chunks and smear all over her face. She didn't just bleed me and my other roommates dry. She also pressured us to use the cheap skincare she sold us. At first, my roommates and I didn't know any better. We just thought her family was poor, that she was trying to save wherever she could, even though we could tell the cheap skincare she sold us was unbranded junk out of consideration for sharing a dorm. We were willing to help her out, but we never expected her to grow more and more brazen, eventually openly stealing our things. The bag I usually couldn't bear to use, she secretly took out to show off, and she scratched it up, the milk tea and snacks my boyfriend bought me once I put them in my cabinet. Within 3 days, there'd be nothing left but empty wrappers and food crumbs. Was this even a roommate? She was a human-shaped rat spirit. Day by day, I grew more and more unable to tolerate her shameless behavior. Until that day, she set her sights on the luxury dress my boyfriend had given me. She opened her mouth and asked to borrow it. Never mind how much the dress was worth. It was also a token of my boyfriend's feelings. I knew Linting was messy and unhygienic, so naturally I didn't want to lend it to her. Linting didn't say anything to my face, but behind my back, she secretly slipped sleeping pills into my water. While I was unconscious, Linting stole my dress and went to confess her feelings to someone else. When I found out, I stormed over to confront her. In the middle of our argument, she shoved me down the stairs. You're so rich. What's the big deal if I borrow your clothes for a bit? You're so stingy. Why don't you just die already? My thoughts were interrupted by the things being shoved into my hands. Lin Tinting was still, just like in my past life, forcing her cheap face ruining skincare products onto me. I let go instinctively as if I'd touched something filthy I could never forget. In my past life, to protect Linting's self-esteem, I used her skincare products right in front of her. Just those 2 times, my face started breaking out in pimples. My originally healthy skin turned sensitive, and I was miserable for a long time, unable to show my face. But Linting accused me of being used to cheap stuff, saying that was why I couldn't handle such high-quality products. She claimed I was slandering her, that I didn't deserve her kindness. During class, she even laid her head on the desk and cried pitifully, drawing the attention and concern of countless classmates. If you have sensitive skin, why didn't you say so earlier? So many people have used my aunt's cosmetics, and nothing happened to them. She exaggerated and twisted things, blaming my sensitive skin, saying I couldn't even handle high-end skincare. Then she took the opportunity to play the victim and promote the cleansing products from her aunt's beauty salon. And I ended up with a reputation among my classmates as someone who didn't know when she was well off, coming back for another life. How could I let the who killed me have her satisfaction? The 2 plastic bottles of skincare products hit the ground. With a dull thud, they caught the attention of my other 2 roommates. Our dorm was a 4-person room. Besides Linting, there were 2 other roommates. In my past life, everyone was fooled by Linting's act. Only the 3 of us, as the real victims of the situation, saw her true face, and now they were holding Linting's cheap skincare in their arms. Full of joy, I looked at them, with complicated eyes, holding back the urge to expose Linting's true nature. Right now, we were all still roommates meeting for the first time, not familiar with each other. If I forcefully exposed Linting's true colors, it would only backfire slowly. I'd make Linting pay blood for blood sooner or later. 3. Linting glanced at the cheap plastic skincare bottle lying alone on the floor. The next second, her eyes were filled with pitiful tears. She pursed her lips. Classmate, I know my family's circumstances are poor, that I can't compare to someone from a privileged background like you. But I just wanted to get along with everyone, even if you don't like my things. You don't have to throw them away. I carried them all the way here from home, with so much effort. As she spoke, she started sobbing. The other 2 roommates, who had accepted her things, also felt awkward, having taken her gifts, and quietly tried to smooth things over. Sony sighed, bent down, and picked up the cheap skincare, putting it back on the table. Chinurin gently patted Linting's back, comforting her. It's okay. We appreciate your kindness. This classmate probably just had a slip of the hand. Accidentally, I let out a barely perceptible sigh. In my past life, they were exactly this understanding. That was why Linting bled them dry, without any limits. But Linting acted as if she'd really taken Chinur's comfort to heart, her eyes still brimming with tears. She looked at me pitifully. Really? You're really not looking down on me? I let out a cold laugh. Really? I'm not looking down on you. I'm looking down on your cheap cosmetics. I can tell, just from the packaging, that the production cost is less than to you on 50 cents. I wouldn't dare use them. What if they ruin my face? I said this viciously, deliberately stomping her face into the dirt. Linting's face went through shades of pale and red. In my past life, the moment she handed us the cheap skincare, she'd immediately pulled out her payment QR code and made us pay one by one. This life, I crushed her cheap skincare products underfoot first. She wanted to pull the same old trick again. She'd need to be able to open her mouth first but I still underestimated Linting's thickness of skin. Even after being humiliated like this by me, she somehow squeezed a smile onto her face. Classmate, you don't understand. And I don't blame you. My aunt's beauty salon is a national chain. Thousands of branches all over the country. The stuff in her store is really good. Lots of wealthy women fight to buy it. It's in high demand. These few bottles were specially reserved for me by my aunt so I could get along with my roommates. I don't know if her face is maintained with cheap skincare products, but it's thicker than a city wall. In my past life, not long before I died, her parents came to the school. That's when we found out that the aunt, who supposedly ran the beauty salon, had been married off to an old widower at 18. And not long after, she was beaten to death. Lintington had stolen the compensation money the old widower gave out, just to have a chance to come to school. Now, she was casually spending that dead relative's legacy, without even blinking. I didn't expose her lie. After all, flipping the board from the very start would make her death too easy. Coming back to this life, I've ceased the initiative. I have plenty of chances to destroy her slowly. Exposing just one small lie wouldn't pose any real threat to someone like her. I gave a half smile, then sell it to those wealthy women. I can't afford it, seeing I was unyielding. Linting's eyes darted around, then turned to the 2 roommates, who had just comforted her. We ran. This skincare product really works great. You can try it. The 2 roommates exchanged a glance and gave her an out. All right, we'll give it a try. If it's good, we'll let you know. Linting nodded, pulling out her payment code without hesitation. Okay, this product sells for $599 in my aunt's salon. But since we're classmates, I'll give you a half-off discount. Just $299 if you like it later. You can come back to me for the same price. She said it with an understanding expression. She hadn't managed to scam me. The easy mark. So, she was shifting that share onto them. I clearly remembered that in my past life, she had only charged $199 for this product. I looked at my two roommates, the unlucky scapegoats. With pity, they hadn't expected Lin Ting to charge them, and their faces showed frustration. But it was too late to back out. So, they reluctantly pulled out their phones to pay. Their families weren't as poor as Lin Tingjing's, but they were still ordinary. 300 yuan could buy them a decent set of affordable skincare. I watched as they reluctantly scanned Lin Ting's payment code. Lin Ting turned back to me with a smug look. You missed this chance, and it's gone. With 300 yuan. What brand can I buy? Why would I want your no-name garbage? With that, I turned to sort out my bedding. The two roommates, hearing me, wavered and silently shoved the skincare back. I suddenly remembered I bought a new set of toner and lotion when I came. I don't need this. I don't have much living expenses this month. I won't buy it for now. Lin Ting had been pushing her sales for ages, wearing her lips thin, but she didn't sell a single set. I could feel that burning, resentful stare on my back. I curled my lips, unbothered. Lin Ting ran out of the dorm crying. The two roommates looked at each other, guilt spreading across their faces. I shook my head. They still hadn't been tormented enough by Lin Ting. 5. Lin Ting's skin was indeed thick enough. Seeing no one paid her any attention, she came back to the dorm. With her eyes still red from crying, she forced a fake, pitiful expression onto her face, trying to act cute, but she probably didn't realize that she had nothing cute about her. A face tart by the sun paired with puffy eyes and a flat nose. It didn't inspire pity. It was just hard to look at. In my past life, we had pitted her family background, but she thought she had us under her thumb this time around. Even though we hadn't followed the old path and bought those cheap skincare products and even had some friction, she still shamelessly mooched off our stuff. I have a cleanliness obsession. Before school started, I especially bought 10 packs of disinfectant wipes to clean things. She saw them and grabbed them directly. Faye, you bought so many disinfectant wipes. You can't use them all. It's a waste. Let me help you use some up. Consider if an apology for your rudeness earlier. I glanced at the wipes she touched with her dirty hands and couldn't be bothered to take them back. Anything she touched disgusted me, just looking at it. Besides, if I didn't fatten up her appetite, how could I carry out my plan seeing I didn't refuse? Lin Ting naturally ignored the conflict over the cheap skincare and started mooching off my and my roommates' daily necessities, just like in the past life. You could say that. When she came to college, she brought nothing but that thick skin face. The bubble tea and food we ordered would be stolen and eaten by her if we looked away for a second. Snacks from the storage cabinet would disappear without a trace. When she got up in the morning, she'd randomly pick a tube of toothpaste from ours. When doing laundry, she'd take turns using Chinurans and Sun Hui's laundry detergent. Chinuran had specially bought scented laundry detergent, more expensive than the regular kind, but she'd barely used it a few times. Before it was almost emptied, she, who had been tolerating Lin Tinting all along, finally snapped. She threw the empty bottle of laundry detergent in front of Lin Tinking, who was flirting with some guy over the phone, and gritted her teeth. Did you use it? You said you forgot to buy it, so I let you use it once or twice. But you've been using it for half a month. I only have 2,000 living expenses a month, and this month I've already bought a second bottle of detergent. Lintington, sensing trouble, immediately hung up the call. With the guy, her face turned pale, and she put on a pitiful look. I'm sorry. I didn't think using your detergent just twice would make you so angry. I won't use yours anymore. I'll use Hui Hoi's cheaper kind. With that, she managed to offend both people at once. Song Hui, who had been about to speak up, couldn't hold back anymore. She sprang out of bed in one fluid motion. Lin Ting, what do you mean by that? Even a beggar doesn't complain about stale food. I haven't said a word about you freeloading office every day, not buying a single thing like laundry detergent, toothpaste, shampoo, or body wash, and yet you have the nerve to blame us first. What's wrong? With me buying cheap stuff, someone keeps stealing my things. I only have so much living expenses each month. I can't afford the expensive stuff, even if I wanted to. Over this period, Linting's behavior in the dorm had become nothing short of infuriating. Even the two roommates, who were usually pushovers, had reached their limit. With her, she bit her lip, tears streaming down her face in big fat drops, wearing an expression of utter humiliation. The commotion they caused was loud enough to draw a crowd at the dormitory door. Classmates from the same major, and different ones alike, pointed fingers at us. Our class monitor couldn't stand it anymore, and helped disperse the onlookers. She walked into the dorm on her own initiative, quietly closing the door behind her. After learning the full story, she looked at Lynn Tinting, with a complicated expression as the monitor. She had a decent grasp of everyone's family backgrounds in the class. Linting had said her family was very poor, relying on kind-hearted people's support to attend school. That much the monitor knew. But as someone with normal morals, she also found Linting's behavior utterly absurd. Tinking, I know you're struggling, but those things belong to others as personal property. What you're doing is really inappropriate. If you're having a tough time financially, I can help you apply for a part-time job at the cafeteria. At least it'll ease some of the pressure on your living expenses. The monitor spoke from the heart, with no hint of looking down on her. She even took out a brand new unopened set of toiletries she bought, and handed them over. But Linting just shoved her away, snatched the set, and slammed it hard onto the ground. I don't need your fake kindness here. Acting like some good Samaritan, giving me a discounted 29 yuan set from the school supermarket. Are you looking down on me? Your boyfriend is so rich. Why are you so stingy? The monitor froze in place, her eyes reening. She was just a 19-year-old girl. Her family situation only slightly better than Linting to avoid burdening her family. She earned all her living expenses from a part-time cafeteria job. She bought that set because the school supermarket was having a clearance sale on toiletries these past 2 days. It was what she used herself. She never expected Lin Ting to see it as an insult. 6. In my past life, I pitted Lintington, and didn't want the other two roommates to suffer either. Even though I didn't do laundry in the dorm, I prepared a box of laundry detergent for them to share. So, in that life, this fight never broke out. This time, though, it was the poor monitor who took the hit. The other two roommates felt a pang of guilt. 2. They picked up the items and handed them back to the monitor. The monitor stormed out, slamming the door. But I caught something sharp. In Linting's words, the mention of the monitor's boyfriend. In a flash of insight, I recall from my past life stumbling upon the monitor on a date with her boyfriend. That voice, it did sound familiar. Thinking this over, I sent that person's name to Uncle Butler and asked him to look into it for me. 7. After the monitor left, Lintington yanked open my bed curtain. Hearing the noise, I quickly hid my phone. I met her venomous glare. With cold indifference. Something wrong. Her face was still streaked with unwiped tears and snot. How dare you laugh at me? It's all your fault. Mun, why didn't you buy laundry detergent? If you had, I wouldn't have had to use theirs. You're so rich. What's wrong with buying some for me? I was stunned by her logic for a split second. I even wondered if Lintington had been reborn. 2. But her eyes told me she was just plain greedy. I let out a cold laugh. Our society's tolerance is really something even beggars can get into college. If I threw my stuff in the trash, you Linting wouldn't be worthy of picking it up. Linting's face twisted with rage as she lunged to claw me. Chinurin and Song. We grabbed her just in time. Over this period, like in my past life, we've gotten along well, with no conflicts. Plus, having a common enemy had solidified our revolutionary friendship. Just you wait. I'll make you all pay. Linting spat out the threat and stormed out, slamming the door. I raised an eyebrow, genuinely curious about what tricks this beggar could pull against A. Just like in my past life, when she framed me, Linting ran crying into the big lecture hall for the next class. She slumped over the desk, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. As class time approached, many students noticed her shaking shoulders. Someone asked what was wrong. She cast a pointed glance at the pale-faced monitor. bit her lip, and hung her head, looking reluctant to speak. Please don't ask. I can take a little grievance. Just don't let it affect how you see the monitor. I know my family's poor, and I can't afford nice things. But she shouldn't have humiliated me with cheap stuff. I don't know what I did wrong for her to treat me like this. I don't know what I did to make everyone hate me. Even my roommates despise me. They always ostracize me. I know I come from a remote mountain village, with no power or influence, and I'm not likable. But all I want is to study, to go to college. What's wrong with that? She knew the students all used toiletries from the school supermarket, so she feared stirring up trouble by mentioning the 29 yuan set directly, calling it cheap stuff instead. And honestly, during her time at school, Linting had been persistently sneaking our face masks and skincare products without farm work or sun exposure. Her skin had indeed gotten paler, making her barely passable as somewhat delicate. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain. With college students' strong sense of empathy, it didn't take long for some to indignantly accuse our dorm and the monitor of discriminating against the poor. The monitor tried to explain, but I pulled her out of the classroom. Afterward, Linting still wasn't satisfied. She wrote a 500-word essay on social media accusing us of isolating her, and submitted it to the campus wall. At that moment, everyone in the entire school knew about the evil deeds my dorm, and I had supposedly committed. Walking across campus, I could see students pointing and whispering among themselves. 9. I didn't care. I only told the class monitor the name of the boy Linting had been getting close to recently. Lul. She left looking utterly devastated. In my past life, she was seduced and manipulated by a cheating scumbag, and her grades plummeted later. Before she even finished her freshman year, she fell into depression and jumped from a building in despair. Back then, she was always busy working part-time jobs to earn her living expenses, and we barely had any interaction. I only heard about her depression and suicide later, and I felt nothing but a deep hollow sight. And now that I've been given a second chance, I decided to reveal that scumbag's true face to her in advance. If she still chose to repeat the same mistakes after all this, then I would respect her fate. What she does, that's her choice. But whether she softened or not, I was absolutely determined to destroy Linting. That wretched woman. She blamed me for not buying her expensive laundry detergent, didn't she? Well, then I buy plenty. I ordered a box of Blue Moon laundry detergent on an app for $2,999 along, with 2 sets of head and shoulders shampoo and conditioner sets. They weighed a full 50 gene. I couldn't even carry them myself. Sun Hui and Chinurin had to help me bring them back to the dorm to thank them. I ordered them bubble tea and little cakes. They looked at me with that "why are you so foolish" expression. I thought your boyfriend takes all your clothes home for the maid to wash. Don't tell me you actually bought all this for that freeloader. And all the shampoo that must have cost you a pretty penny, right? I just smiled, without answering silently. I put on a pair of disposable gloves and pulled out the secret weapon the housekeeper had prepared for me right in front of them. I poured a small jar of thick liquid directly into the shampoo bottles. They didn't ask any questions. They quietly helped me place the laundry detergent and shampoo under the sink. Linting had been spreading rumors everywhere, claiming we were bullying her, and she received plenty of sympathy. Now, the entire campus was filled with voices condemning us. Seeing that we didn't bother to defend ourselves, Linting assumed we were scared, so she grew even more brazen, throwing her weight around in the dorm. She ate our snacks. She used our skincare products. She took the clothes we'd hung out to dry, but hadn't collected yet, and used them to wipe her foot basin. This forced Sonu and Chinyaran only do laundry on weekends, and then they had to watch the clothes until they were completely dry. Luckily, my boyfriend Shinjin had bought a large penthouse near the school. He took all my clothes back there for the maid to wash. 10. Linting finally discovered the shampoo I'd hidden under the sink. She let out a vicious sneer, triumphantly carrying the shampoo into the bathroom. HH. A scream tore through the air, and Linting burst out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. My roommates and I exchanged glances, barely holding back our laughter at this moment. Linting had completely lost her delicate coquettish image. Her bald head gleamed like a boiled egg under the light, shining brightly. Well, that wasn't quite accurate either. It seemed a few strands of hair were still stubbornly clinging on TK. The housekeeper really had been slacking off. This depilatory cream was only mediocre. But the next second, I watched in amazement as the remaining foam on Linting's forehead dripped down onto her eyebrows. In an instant, that patch of eyebrow hair fell off, landing at her feet. I was thoroughly impressed. I decided to tell my dad to give the housekeeper a raise this month. Linting watched helplessly as her own eyebrow dropped to the floor. Her eyes shifted from shock to terror, then to utter disbelief. Who did this? Was it you? Did you put something in the shampoo? Give me back my hair. Give me back my hair. Linting lunged at me, claws beard. Sun Hu. And Chinurin barely managed to hold her back. With that bald head of hers, even her most vicious expression somehow looked comical. I fought hard to suppress the laughter in my eyes, putting on an innocent face. Classmate Lin, what are you talking about? I think this new hairstyle of yours is actually quite nice. It really suits you. I pressed my lips together, hiding a smile. Linting had been getting close to Lul lately. They'd met through the campus confession page and had agreed to meet up in person in the next couple of days. In my past life, it was after this meeting that they started their secret relationship. And how did I know that? Because after that, Linting started staying out all night every few days, having voice calls with different men until the wee hours. Their conversations were filled with filthy language, worse than any adult film. Every time it disturbed the rest of us trying to sleep, we warned her repeatedly to stop, but she just cursed us, saying we were jealous because we couldn't land a rich second-generation boyfriend like she had. Lul was just one of her meal tickets. Oh, and he was also the class monitor's boyfriend. The class monitor and Lul were both college students from the same village. Neither of them came from wealthy families, but since Lul was an only son, his life was far better than the class monitor's. During this time, he'd been sending Linting transfers of 52 yuan and 113 yuan and 40 cents, calling them 520 and 1,314. And, with just that little bit of money, Linting was so excited she screamed in the dorm. I wondered, though, when she showed up for their date, with that shiny bald head of hers, would her brother Lei still want to exchange loving glances with her? 11. Linting was furious, but helpless. With Sun Hui and Qinwan there was nothing she could really do due to me. Frustrated and panicked, she didn't dare storm out of the dorm. With that bald head, all she could do was glare at me hatefully. Her eyes looked like she wanted to kill me. Well, the feeling was mutual. I wanted her dead more than anyone. She didn't dare call the police. She didn't dare report us to the counselor, because she had stolen money from her family to come to school if her parents cut her. She was done for at that thought. I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. If you're living such a miserable life and still can't learn to keep your head down, then I guess your parents will just have to teach you a lesson. I immediately instructed the housekeeper to contact her family. 12. As for me, I left Linting fuming, with resentment behind, and went to get bubble tea with my boyfriend, Shinjin. Shinjin and I were childhood sweethearts from well-matched families. Our fathers had grown up together like brothers. Before we were even born, our engagement had already been arranged. When I was little, I hated Shinjin more than anything. He was always playing tricks on me. But after entering high school, he grew more and more striking, even becoming the school's heartthrob. Quite a few junior and senior girls secretly admired him. How could that be? I directly cornered him and kissed him forcefully, making him completely mine. Both sets of parents were happy to see it happened. Shinjin's college entrance exam scores were dozens of points higher than mine. He clearly could have applied to a better school. Yet, he still chose to attend Z University. With me, I heard that this was even a decision unanimously agreed upon by his entire family to ensure we lived comfortably. Uncle Sean even bought a large penthouse near the school. But considering our reputations, I didn't plan to live with him before marriage. I Just instructed him to bring my clothes to the housekeeper for washing every now and then in my past life. After I died, he didn't believe I had accidentally fallen down the stairs, because it was him who discovered Linting secretly wearing my clothes. He called me to ask about it, but inadvertently woke me up after I had been drugged with sleeping pills. He seized on that suspicious point and pressed the issue alongside my parents. In the end, he sent the murderer, Linting, to prison. After the truth came to light, he fell into self-blame, believing that it was his call that woke me up, which led to my argument with Linting and ultimately my being pushed down the stairs. To my death, he never managed to move on. In the end, he shaved his head and became a monk, praying and offering blessings for me in the temple. Perhaps it was heaven moved by his sincerity that granted me this chance to be reborn. Thinking of this, I tightened my grip on his large hand, with its distinct knuckles, and glanced sideways at him. Let's get married, right? After we graduate from university. Okay, sure. My greatest dream in this life is to marry you. Shenzhen laughed freely as he spoke. He thought of the rumors spreading around school, and frowned deeply. Fie, move out of the dormitory, and live with me. I'm worried. I knew what he was worried about. He had always protected me, well since childhood. But now, even though he knew someone was out to harm me, the girls' dormitory wasn't a place he could just enter. I shook my head. Don't worry. I am Murung Fei, and I pay back every grudge. If anyone dares to bite me, I'll tear them apart. As I spoke, Lin Tinking's face surfaced in my mind. Shinj knew my stubbornness. He sighed and ruffled my hair. All right, but if you run into any trouble, you must tell me immediately. No matter when. I'll be there. With that, he led me back to the apartment Uncle Shin had bought. He produced an exquisite gift box like a magician. Fifi, happy 3rd anniversary. I designed this dress myself and had a luxury factory produce it. See if you like it. Don't you dare say you don't. His eyes sparkled as he looked at me. A flicker of complexity passed through my eyes. Of course, I knew what was inside. In my past life, Linting stole this very dress to go on a date with Lul. On the way, she happened to run into Shenzhen, which led to my tragic death. I stared at the delicately wrapped red silk gift box, my heart trembling for a moment. Shenzhen had excellent taste, and the dressy design was the one that suited me best. The most stunning, but in that past life, it was because of this that I dyed my hand. Untangling the ribbon froze midair. A hint of grievance flickered in Shinjin's eyes like a rejected puppy. Why won't you open it? Is it because you don't like me, or you don't like the gift I prepared? I was speechless. Yes, it wasn't this dress that killed me. It was that damned Linting. This was a gift from my beloved filled with his love. Why should I be afraid? 13. I looked at the red dress with joy in my eyes. Just like in my past life, I immediately went to my room to change into it and spun around in front of him. How does it look? Is it pretty? Beautiful. It's Faye who makes this dress even more beautiful. She smiled like a lovesick fool. I couldn't help but laugh, remembering what happened in my past life. I used the excuse of fearing my roommate might damage it to leave the dress here. Shinjin didn't suspect a thing and walked me back to the girls' dormitory building. I stood at the entrance, watching him look back at me with every step as he left. Once he was gone, I didn't return to the dorm. Instead, I turned and headed to the back gate of the school from the butler. I took a nearly identical dress. From the moment I was reborn, I was determined to take revenge to make Linting pay with blood for my plan. I drew out the design of this dress based on my past life memories, then had the butler find someone to produce it. Looking closely, this dress only resembled the one Shineen gave me in style. In terms of fabric and craftsmanship, it was far inferior to mine. Uncle Butler really knew how to please me, even if it was a cheap knockoff. If Linting dared to wear my clothes, I would make her pay tenfold. Uncle Butler nodded at me. Mississippi, everything you instructed has been arranged. I smiled and waved, then carried the gift box back to the dormitory 14. Just like in my past life, I brought the dress back to the dorm and immediately showed it off to my roommates. I wore the knockoff red dress and twirled in the center of the room. My boyfriend designed this himself, and it was custom made by a luxury factory. It's the only one in the world. I lifted my chin proudly like the happiest little girl in the world. But cheap fabric was still cheap fabric. The stiff material chafed my lower back painfully soon. I noticed a vicious gaze fixed coldly on me from behind. I spun around abruptly and looked at Lin Ting. What are you staring at? Want to wear it? With someone as cheap as you? Do you even deserve to wear a high-end custom dress? Take a look at your pathetic, broke self. I rolled my eyes and taunted her with the sharpest, most biting tone. Lin Ting clenched her fists and curled back into her bed stiffly. On her head was a cheap wig, the kind that was obviously fake. No, she really looked like a beaten dog, but I knew that dogs that bite don't bark. Her beady darting eyes were filled with greed for my dress. 15. The familiar hot water. The familiar temperature. Sun Hui and Chinuran had gone shopping, leaving the dorm empty. Just the two of us. The all-too-familiar glass of water was handed to me by Lin Ting. Tears streamed down her face before she even spoke, plopping onto the steps of the top bunk. Faye, I know I've messed up lately, but I'm truly dirt poor. I only took a tiny bit of your stuff. You guys wouldn't even notice the loss. Yet it meant so much to me. I thought you wouldn't mind. Turns out I deluded myself. Faye, I really don't have a malicious bone in my body. I'm just desperate for money. Can you find it in your heart to forgive me? Her face was wrought with earnest entreaty, big eyes swimming in pleading hope as if she were the wrong party here. I didn't glance at her, only stared fixed at the steaming cup of water. Warm vapor twisted and swirled midair, identical to her hollow, deceptive words, drifting aimlessly, without substance. Sure, I get it. People born into poverty always can't read their place. Still, since you've owned up to your mistake, I'm willing to give you a second chance. I smiled sweetly, my voice laced with deliberate softness like soothing a skittish, unruly little beast. Lin Ting's complexion shifted from ashen to pale. She fought the urge to fling the hot water straight in my face. I watched her balled fists tremble, fingernails nearly sinking into her palm flesh. I knew you were the kindest person alive. Faye! With that, she held the cup out to me, movements tinged with impatient eagerness. I smiled and took a sip before handing it back to her. While her guard dropped, I discreetly spat the water into a hidden container. I'd prepped the motion swift as a gust of wind, barely perceptible even to myself. Not long after, I feigned deep sleep, my breathing slow and even, as if the sedative had knocked me unconscious moments later. Faint rustling drifted up from the lower bunk. The sound was soft yet crystal clear in the silent dormitory. Lin Ting muttered insults as she slipped on my replica red dress. Stupid loaded yet so stingy. It's just a cheap dress. What's wrong with me wearing it? She twirled before the full-length mirror draped in the dress, the skirt fluttering like a clumsy butterfly, striking one pose after another, her face glowing with smug satisfaction. That full-length mirror had been split evenly between all 4 doormates at first. When we pulled money to buy it, Lin Ting claimed she had no use for it and refused to chip in. Sway and Chinuran were left speechless, glaring at each other in exasperation. I waved it off and told the 2 girls they didn't need to pay either, then covered the full cost myself, after double-checking Ting wouldn't contribute yet. After it arrived, she used the mirror more than anyone, pining in front of it, morning till night. Song Hui and Chinuran would vent to me privately, complaining the mirror was practically her personal vanity station. Number 16. Lin Ting admired her reflection for ages before heading out, fully content. She teetered on high heels, hips swaying like she was off to a lavish gala. The second the dorm door clicked shut behind her, I stopped recording without a second's delay and scrambled out of bed, movements sharp and predatory as a stalking leopard. This lifetime I dragged her down far worse than she dragged me. Without hesitation, I uploaded every clip I'd captured, footage of her ranting that wealthy students ought to hand her free body wash, and the video where she mocked our class monitor's $2,999 skincare set as cheap garbage. I flooded the school forum, every campus social group, and the campus gossip page with the evidence. My fingers flying across the keyboard, every keystroke sharp, with resolve. On top of that, our monitor sent over a trove of evidence. Chat logs, flirty voice notes, and suggestive photos proving Linting Ding been hitting on her boyfriend. Lul. The messages were sickeningly saccharine, oozing flirtation. I posted all of it online. 2. The content detonated across campus social media like bombs, sparking universal public outrage. One stone stirred 1,000 ripples. Countless students, who'd previously defended her, flooded the comment sections with scathing rants. I can't believe I stuck up for that conniving two-faced girl. I'm such an idiot. She calls others cheap trash, but she doesn't even deserve budget skincare. Some broke mooch, with a superiority complex. Disgusting. I can't believe I ever sympathized with that homewrecker. The school needs to expel her immediately. New reason to avoid enrolling here added to my list. The campus supermarket official account also released a lengthy statement to clear its name. Students, please do not listen to her slander. Our products are well-known mainstream brands. We only cut prices via supplier partnerships for promotional events. We never expected such unfair slander. What a shame. Hashtag number 17. Linting was probably too busy rushing to meet her lover to see the online backlash wrapped up in excitement over there. Rooftop date. Just like in my past life, she tapped furiously on her phone screen, likely pestering Lul to hurry over. I stormed out, without a word, clutching a fruit knife I'd gotten free, with my watermelon purchase that noon. Its blade glinted cold under the sunlight. Linting, you slipped drugs into my drink and stole my dress to wear behind my back. It was high noon, the blistering sun scorching the pavement, almost no one lingering on the rooftop. Only Linting stood there in my replica red dress, skirt fluttering in the breeze. Whether from the trauma I'd inflicted on her recently or the icy glint of the knife catching sunlight, my shot sent her sprinting in terror. Her wig flew off mid-flight, revealing a smooth, bald scalp that glinted blindingly under the sun like a peeled egg. Hashtag number 18. Like I said, hardly anyone visited the rooftop at this hour. The cleaning lady mopped the stairwell steps. While the area sat empty, the concrete treads were still slick, with unclean soapy water. When it headed up, Linting was so panicked. Fleeing me, she lost all sense of caution, scrambling down the slippery stairs like a terrified rabbit. The thin high heels she'd stolen didn't fit her properly, making her stagger with every step. I watched from the rooftop as she tumbled end over end down the staircase, her body spinning like an out-of-control top. The skirt flapped up and down, accompanied by dull thuds as she crashed against each step. She finally crumpled motionless. At the landing, her limbs twisted into an unnatural contortion. Thankfully, she hadn't died from the fall. Number 19. In my previous life, Linting shoved me, with all her brute strength, raised doing farm labor. She possessed far more physical power than my sheltered self. I'd survived the initial fall, bleeding heavily from head wounds. Yet, she'd shoved me a second time to silence me. I'd tumbled 5 flights down. My delicate neck snapped into a horrific angle, lifeless on the concrete this time. She tasted far worse suffering than I endured. I had no intention of staining my own hands with her worthless life. Number 20. I leaned over the rooftop railing and screamed manufactured panic, voice shrill as a startled sparrow. Help! Someone's hurt themselves. Students flocked to the rooftop at once, footsteps echoing from every corridor. Isn't that the mooching two-faced girl everyone's been talking about? This is karma catching up to her. She's not moving. Could she be dead? Even if she survived, she brought this all on herself. Who messes with other people's partners and acts entitled to their belongings? I could tell from her white, knuckled grip on the concrete that she heard every cruel insult hurled at her, trapped under an invisible weight of humiliation. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was barely clinging to life, shallow, ragged breaths like a dying fish. But her parents burst through the crowd before paramedics could reach her, faces contorted with unbridled rage. You wretched girl, that money was meant for your brother's wedding. Hand over every cent you stole from us, or we'll beat you half to death. They threw themselves on top of her, landing punch, After punch like a relentless hailstorm, Linting Ting, already barely breathing, coughed up fresh blood that spilled across the ground like a blooming crimson flower. The onlookers collectively sucked in a breath of cold air. For a moment, the air itself fell silent. The paramedics tried to take Lin Ting away for treatment, but her parents cursed them out, accusing them of being scammers trying to extort money. "No way," they said, "not a single cent." And so Linting was taken back to her hometown by them, where they hastily forced a few mouthfuls of herbal medicine down her throat to keep her alive. They relentlessly pressed her, demanding to know where she had hidden the stolen money. Where could it be? That 10,000 yuan. Linting had used it all to pay her tuition. Even if they beat her to death, she couldn't produce that money anymore. 21 in truth. Back in my past life. Right after I started school and learned about Linting's difficult family situation, I had spoken to my father about it. I hoped he could go through the proper channels to sponsor Linting's tuition and living expenses. My father readily agreed. But while the paperwork was still being processed, Linting pushed me off that high building, killing me on the spot. It wouldn't have been long before she could have received that money and lived a decent life. She didn't just kill me that day. She killed herself. 222 Linting was stubbornly resilient even after that fall, even after her parents beat her, even without being rushed to the hospital, just barely kept alive by those 2 mouthfuls of herbs. She still didn't die, but she didn't recover either. She was completely paralyzed. Her parents, having failed to get back the money Lin Ting had supposedly stolen, resorted to their old tricks. They sold her off to that old widower who had beaten her aunt to death. This time, they got 20,000 yuan and went home grinning. As for whether Linting lived or died, it had nothing to do with them anymore. After that, I never bothered to follow up on Lin Ting's news. My blood debt was already settled. Whether she lived or died was none of my concern. After all, having fallen to such a state, being beaten to death by that old widower was the best ending she could hope for. 23 later, the class monitor came to thank me specifically. She had kicked Lul to the curb, and no matter how much that man begged her, she never looked back. Lul also became infamous on Z University's campus forum, facing scorn and contempt from everyone. Not long after, he dropped out. This time, it wasn't just me who had rewritten my fate. The class monitor had rewritten hers. 22-24 Shenzhen. And I got married. We didn't wait until after graduation. As soon as I reached the legal age, he dragged me to get the marriage certificate, claiming, with a charming smile, that it would add extra credit to our grades. I looked at his gentle, warm eyes, and finally felt that everything had settled into place. In my past life, he had knelt before the Buddha, begging desperately in this life. It had earned us the chance to know each other, to stay together. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comment section. Next, there's another similar story. Let's continue to see. In my sophomore year, my roommate had a miscarriage in the dorm. I kindly took her to the hospital, but in the end, rumors spread that I was the one with a chaotic private life and multiple miscarriages. I was slandered, had my photos edited, and became the talk of the school. On the day the school called me in for a talk, a group of thugs dragged me into a small grove. I barely managed to drag my battered body back to the dorm, only to have my roommates complain about how dirty I was and tried to kick me out. In the midst of the shoving, I fell from the 6th floor and landed on an iron rod, which pierced straight through me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my roommate had her miscarriage. Rose. My stomach hurt so much. Sherry Miller's weak voice reached my ears, pulling my dazed mind back to reality. Looking at the person now lying on my bed and crying out in pain, my heart was pounding fiercely. The excruciating drilling pain of being pierced through the body by an iron rod. Just a moment ago, the tearing sensation in my waist and abdomen felt like nothing more than a dream of bright red blood had already begun to spread across my bedsheet. Frowning deeply, I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of Sher Miller. "Rose Keller, why are you taking pictures of me?" she asked in confusion. seemingly unaware of the severity of the situation. Ignoring her, I dialed for an ambulance, reported the situation, put away my phone, and only then pulled her up from the bed. "Sure, Miller, you've stained my bedsheet. This is a silk bedding set my mom bought for me, worth 8,000 yuan. It can't be washed. The sheet is so dirty now. It's definitely unusable. I'll count it as 3,000. Remember to transfer it to me." Pulled to her feet. She was a bit unsteady and tried to lean on me. I found it disgusting, so I took a light step back, and she fell heavily to the ground. Rose Keller. She was in so much pain. She couldn't even speak clearly. I waved my hand and said, "There's blood everywhere. Of course, I can't let you keep sitting on the bed or a chair. Sit on the floor. It's easier to clean." I put on a look of concern for her, casually pulled over a chair to sit down, and started playing on my phone as if it were the most natural thing in the world. After a moment's thought, I snapped a few more photos of her. I paid no attention as she lay on the ground, crying out in pain as if calling for her parents. It was Saturday, and many students had gone out to have fun. Our dorm room door was closed again, so there was no way for anyone outside to know what was happening inside. When the school built the dorms, they specifically reinforced the soundproofing to account for different schedules. Even if she were to cry out loudly now, no one outside would hear her. In my past life, I also suffered. Because of this, the dirty ones were my sheets, and the dorm room door was shut tight, so no one could see what was going on inside. When the ambulance arrived, she was completely covered up, afraid of being recognized. She even specifically told me to wear her mask and hat. It was because I believed her nonsense that I ended up in that awkward situation, unable to explain myself clearly, thinking of all the things from my past life. I felt so much hatred that it made my heart ache. Soon the ambulance arrived. Miller begged me to go with her, and I didn't refuse. Before we left, as expected, she pleaded with me to wear a mask and a hat. "Rose, there are masks and hats in my cabinet. Find them and put them on. Please, if we get recognized, how can we ever face anyone again?" The nurses also tried to persuade me. I know, they meant well, but I still firmly refused. "Sherry, I'm Fine. I'm not afraid of being seen." "Nurse, let's hurry. She's been in pain for a while now. If we don't move quickly, I'm afraid." Before Miller could say anything, the stretcher was carried out of the dormitory, and I, openly following the crowd, wore a face full of tension. I even kindly explained, when people asked along the way, "Oh, yes, it's Miller from our dorm." For some reason, she suddenly started bleeding heavily. "Yes, that's right, it's her." "Oh, everyone, please stop asking. Let's wait until we come out of the hospital to talk. On behalf of Sherry, I thank you all for your concern." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Miller looking at me, with a gaze that seemed ready to devour me. I pretended not to notice, and continued explaining the situation to my classmates all the way until the stretcher was loaded into the ambulance. In the cramped ambulance, Miller weakly questioned me. "Rose Keller, why did you tell them it was me? Do you know?" I grabbed her hand, interrupting her, with a sincere expression. "Oh, Sherry, everyone is just concerned about you. They mean well. It's just an illness. Why can't people know it's you? You're really acting strange. I don't understand you." "Sherry." The nurses also looked impressed, all praising me for being such a good roommate. I smiled modestly, but inside I was laughing with delight. Miller, this time, let's see how you try to frame me. Want me to be your scapegoat and take all the gossip for you? In your next life." When we arrived at the hospital, she was wheeled into the operating room. I sat on a chair in the hallway and took a few photos of the operating room door. I sorted through the photos taken in the dorm, selected a few with the best angles, and posted them on my social media feed along with a selfie of myself. Caption: "My roommate is bleeding a lot. It's so scary. I'm accompanying her to the hospital. Hope Sherry stays safe." As a student council member, I have many classmates in my WeChat contacts. Many people witnessed the ambulance arriving earlier. Within half an hour of posting this moment, the likes surpassed 100, and there were dozens of comments. Some people even took screenshots of the moments and posted them in the school's main group chat. I responded enthusiastically, thanking them on behalf of Sher Miller for their concern. Many of them suspected she had had a miscarriage, and I feigned surprise in my responses. Impossible. Our Sher has always been chaste and self-respecting. How could she do such a thing? Classmate, don't talk nonsense. Indeed, Sher Miller had always been known as the pure campus belle at school. From freshman to sophomore year, she had never even had a boyfriend, so in her previous life, no one had ever suspected her. She was afraid that her dirty secrets would be exposed, so to divert attention, she struck first. She deliberately leaked the news of the miscarriage and pinned all her unspeakable, filthy deeds on me. When I confronted her, she pretended to be pitiful and refused to admit anything. She insisted that I was the one who had the miscarriage and that she had only accompanied me to the hospital. We're about the same size, and, before leaving the dorm, I was wearing her hat and mask. This is the best evidence she has to clear herself. As for those medical certificates, who would bother to verify them? I was pushed into the spotlight, and no one would bother to confirm the authenticity of those rumors and photoshopped images. Everyone only believes what they want to see, treating it as nothing more than a sensational piece of gossip. From her miscarriage to my fall from the building, it was only a matter of half a month. The surgery took a long time, and 2 hours later, she was wheeled out unconscious. By the time she woke up, I had already called the other roommates over. In my previous life, they were bribed by Sher Miller with money, united in their stance, and insisted that it was me who had the miscarriage. They even cooperated with Sher Miller to take pictures of my bloodstained bed. This time, I called them over in advance, and even took photos of the hospital room to post on my social media. I refused to believe that, with such solid evidence, these people could still harm me, but I still underestimated the terrifying depths of human nature. Sher Miller, upon waking up, saw that all her roommates had gathered, and a fleeting expression I couldn't quite decipher crossed her face. She deliberately sent me away, asking me to go downstairs and buy her a bowl of hot porridge. By the time I returned, everyone's expression seemed a little off. I felt a sense of alertness, but I had no idea what they had discussed while I was gone. And Sher Miller needed to be hospitalized for a few days, so we roommates took turns taking care of her. To outsiders, we maintained a unified story. She had heavy bleeding due to irregular menstruation, unlike in my previous life. This time, the other 2 roommates had clearly seen that report. Everyone knew the real reason she was hospitalized. However, everyone remained silent about this, and not a word about the miscarriage got out. On the day she was discharged from the hospital, we all went together to pick her up. Back at the dorm, Sher Miller said the top bunk was too high, and given her current physical condition, it wasn't suitable for her to climb up and down. She asked to switch beds with me. She had made the same request in my previous life, and, without thinking much at the time, I agreed. On the 7th day, after her miscarriage, which was also a Sunday, I had been sleeping in the dormitory all day because of a fever. That afternoon, while I was in a daze, I felt someone pressing down on me. When I forced myself to wake up, I saw a boy who was completely naked, and I was also undressed. Before I could resist, a group of people suddenly barged, and since I was sleeping on the top bunk, and everyone was crowded below, I couldn't even get down to find something to cover myself that day. The photos of me fooling around with a man in the dormitory went viral across the school. After that, all the rumors about my chaotic private life and multiple abortions were treated as confirmed facts, leaving me with no way to defend myself, thinking of the helplessness and humiliation from my past life. I couldn't help but clench my fists, though I kept my expression neutral. I pretended to be hesitant. Sherry, you know I often get up at night, and, with all the student council work, I come back late quite often. If I take the top bunk, I'm afraid I'll disturb you all. Back when we first chose our bunks as freshmen, she complained that the lower bunk was often sat on by others and wasn't clean. Now she wants to switch to the lower bunk and have me take the top one. In my past life, I was too soft-hearted and naive, which is why she managed to fool me so easily. Rose, let's just switch for a while. Once I've fully recovered, I'll move back. Okay. It was a compromise, but I still didn't agree to persuade me. The three of them united once again, trying to emotionally manipulate me. Lisa Mitchell stood beside Shermiller, looking righteous and imposing. Rose Keller, we're all roommates. What's the big deal about helping out? Charles James had already started tidying my bed. Yeah, how can you be so cold-hearted? It's just changing the bedding. Not like I'm asking for your life. Seriously, have some compassion watching her rough movements. My eyes darkened, and I pushed Charles James away. What are you doing? Did I agree to this? How dare you touch my things? I said. I don't want to. Are you deaf or what? If you're so eager to help Charles James, why don't you swap with her yourself? Aren't you also on a lower bunk? I fired off a rapid string of words, leaving the group stunned and speechless. Perhaps they never expected that I, usually so mild-mannered and easygoing, could be so fierce today. You really think I'm a sick cat that's easy to bully? Don't you? Sherry Miller was the first to react. She looked aggrieved, even squeezing out tears at the corners of her eyes. Rose. Forget it. Forget it. Since you're unwilling, let's just drop it. Shururua has trouble with her legs. You know that. Fine. I'll just bear the burden, even if it hurts a little. It's what I deserve. This fake, innocent act of hers makes me sick to my stomach. It was the same in my past life. When everyone was pointing fingers at me, she stirred the pot with her phony sweet act. Let it go. Everyone. Don't give Rose a hard time. Something like this definitely wasn't her choice. She must have had her own reasons for being with so many men. Oh well. Everyone goes through tough times. Her words directly nailed me to the pillar of shame, branding me as someone kept by multiple men and selling my body for money. Yet behind the scenes, she wore a completely different face. Rose Keller, I deliberately lay on your bed. I deliberately framed you. Who told you to act so falsely pure and noble all the time and come from such a good background? Why, when I'm prettier than you, do I have to suffer so much? Why do you get to stay clean while I struggle at the bottom? I just want to drag you down into the mud with me. I've always kept my family background well hidden to the outside world. I only say that I'm an ordinary girl from the countryside, and I have no idea how she found out. It wasn't until the moment I was pushed off the building that I understood. The reason she hated me so much and wanted me dead was simply jealousy. She also came from a rural background. Yet, she harbored a vain heart. Before that incident happened, we all thought she was a wealthy person from the countryside, but it wasn't until the very end that I found out all that money was earned through selling her body. That's why she was jealous of me, who also came from the countryside, but was a demolition-compensated Nevo Lisa Mitchell. And Charles James hugged her sympathetically. Sherry, you're just too easy to bully. The deep sisterly bond between the three of them made me sick. I was facing the dormitory door and noticed it had been pulled open a crack. I thought crossed my mind. Forget it. Since Sherry wants the bottom bunk, I'll let you have it. I'll move out. She felt wronged, but I felt even more wrong than she did. As soon as these words were spoken, Shermiller froze, but soon her voice broke with emotion. No, Rose Keller, you can't move out. She grabbed my hand, her face full of tension. I pretended not to understand. Why can't I move out? I don't want to sleep on the top bunk. If you want my bed, then this is the only way, isn't it? Shermiller, I've already made such a big concession. What more do you want from me? She tightened her grip on my hand, hesitatingly trying to persuade me, putting on a show of caring for my well-being. Rose, it's too unsafe for a girl like you to move out and live alone. If you really don't want to switch, then it's fine. I'll just take the top bunk. It's really no problem. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Unsafe to move out. I'm afraid the real danger lies in staying here. I've come to realize that instead of fighting with them here, I might as well move out. Going to college is about pursuing a future, about studying hard, not about scheming and plotting. What's more, with all these open and hidden attacks, no matter how careful I am, I'll eventually stumble again sooner or later. You can be on guard for 1,000 days, but you can't stay vigilant forever. I do want revenge, but now is not the time. alone, and helpless. I dare not gamble with my safety once I made up my mind. I expressionlessly pulled her hand away, turned around, and began tidying the bed. We're good roommates. Since you're not feeling well, I should let you have your way. Sherry, don't worry. I'm perfectly safe out here. You don't need to compromise yourself for my sake. She tried to grab my arm again. No, Rose. Don't be impulsive. Just then, the dorm room door swung open. Several girls from the neighboring dorm walked in, giving Miller a once-over. Before saying, "Classmate, Rose Keller has already made such a big concession to accommodate your health condition. What exactly are you being so fussy about?" Miller avoided eye contact and began to defend herself, but her words were full of holes. While they were arguing, I had already finished making my bed. Next, it was time for my desk and wardrobe, but when I opened my wardrobe, I found some things that didn't belong to me. Lubricant, a whole box of condoms, adult toys. I froze in place, and Miller's voice sounded from behind. "Oh my Rose, how could you have these things?" I turned around, looking at her deliberately surprised face, my mind exploding. With fireworks, a flicker of malice flashed in her eyes. A sudden inspiration struck me. Could it be wrong? All wrong. This is her true intention. Certain details suddenly flooded into my mind. No wonder. Before we left, Charles James said she needed to use the restroom and told us to go ahead first. So that's how it was. All these things were placed in my locker by her. Changing beds, not wanting me to move out. It's all reverse psychology for no reason at all. How could the door have opened? And how could it be such a coincidence that two girls from the neighboring dorm appeared? All of this was planned by Miller. She must have been Reborn. 2. She must have noticed my unusual behavior earlier. She already knew that this time I would definitely not agree to switch beds. She also knew very well that I am someone who dislikes trouble. So, I would definitely choose to move out. She knew that having lived a second life, I would never just sit back and wait for death. So, she decided to turn the tables and chose another way to ruin my reputation. Even if the miscarriage couldn't be pinned on me, I still couldn't escape the accusation of having a chaotic personal life. Even if I revealed my true family background, in the face of undeniable evidence, people would still think I was a rich, promiscuous troublemaker. Step by step, she calculated everything. Like a worm in my gut, she anticipated every decision I made. The two girls had already started taking photos of my cabinet with their phones. My mind was racing, but I was at a complete loss. I was careless. Sherry Miller, having lived a second life, has actually grown a brain. Jisk, I never expected that. Rose Keller, you be so wild. Jean Roro picked up that bottle of lubricant and smiled at me with a triumphant look. Lisa Mitchell snatched the item from her hand and shoved it into my arms, her tone dripping with disdain. Chirua, why are you touching this thing? Aren't you afraid it's covered in germs? Don't you find it disgusting? The dormitory door was wide open, and a group of girls from other rooms had already gathered around. Everyone was pointing and whispering about us, and the two girls, who had just come, were even urging others to come inside. Everyone coming quickly. We found something new. Probably not many people have seen these things. Right. Let me read the instructions for you. One of the girls had already started reading, while the others either teased me for being shameless or ran out blushing. The scene was strikingly similar to what had happened in my previous life. Those filthy insults were like the sharpest knives, flaying my heart. I covered my ears and crouched on the ground. No, I can't just admit defeat like this given a second chance at life. I can't let my future be destroyed by Miller, even if it means completely breaking with them and confronting them head-on. I cannot accept this false accusation. I do fear trouble, but even more, I fear the hidden schemes of petty people and the endless backstabbing. But this time, I choose to face it directly. I will completely eradicate Miller and her toxic clique. I stood up, picked up the lubricant from the floor, snatched the instruction manual and adult toys from the girls' hands, stuffed them all back into my wardrobe, and finally locked it. After doing all this, I calmly spoke. These things are not mine. I have noted down every single one of you who insulted me just now. I will call the police. Once the truth is uncovered, you can expect to receive a lawyer's letter. Everyone was stunned. They never imagined that, just by gossiping and watching the drama, casually spouting a few words, they would end up receiving a lawyer's letter. Those who had held back from speaking earlier quickly left the scene. Those who had insulted me stood frozen, unsure whether to stay or leave at the impasse. Sure Miller spoke up. What are you all afraid of? Those things are in her locker. If they're not hers, then whose could they be? And calling the police. Who knows that she's just trying to destroy evidence? She's just trying to scare you. Lisa Mitchell and Charles James also chimed in, their words giving everyone a sense of reassurance. Seeing that I didn't call the police, everyone continued to hurl insults, each one more vicious and unbearable than the last. I glanced at everyone present and picked up my phone. Officer, did you hear everything that was just said? The noisy dorm instantly fell silent, and everyone stared at me in stunned disbelief. Charles James lunged forward, trying to snatch my phone. Rose Keller, have you lost your mind? You actually dared to call the police. I twisted my waist and dodged her attack due to inertia. She slammed straight into the wardrobe. Well, as luck would have it, the latch on that wardrobe was broken, and a piece of metal was sticking out. With that lunge, her face ended up making intimate contact with that metal piece. In an instant, the pin-drop silence of the dormitory was shattered by her piercing, pig slaughter-like screams of pain. My face. My face. It hurt so much. She covered her face and turned around, bright red blood seeping out from between her fingers. Everyone was terrified. As for me, seeing her in such a pathetic state brought me great satisfaction. In my previous life, she was the one who pushed me the hardest. When I fell from the building, she could have grabbed me, but she chose to let go. And now that her face is disfigured, it's just karma. Sure Miller and Lisa Mitchell didn't dare to step forward at all. The two clung to each other, trembling uncontrollably, both utterly panicked, even though Sure Miller had also been reborn. The scene unfolding today was something she had never anticipated. I was still alive, yet Charles James, who had always stood by her side and spoken up for her, had fallen victim. Instead, she was finally beginning to feel fear. And at that moment, the police officers arrived as well. Charles James was taken to the hospital, and everyone present was brought to the police station. The items inside the cabinet were also taken away. After giving our statements, since we were all students, and there were so many of us, the police's assessment results came out very quickly on my cabinet door. There are fingerprints belonging to both Charles James and me. However, on those items, aside from the lubricant, instruction manual, and one of the adult toys that I had touched, everything else only had fingerprints from Charles James and Lisa Mitchell. Additionally, the dormitory hallway surveillance footage captured Charles James sneaking back while carrying a pile of items. The evidence is conclusive, and the truth is self-evident. Those who spoke harshly to me in the dorm today have all apologized to me, but I do not accept it. This kind of apology is meaningless. If you don't want to receive a lawyer's letter, then each of you must write a 10,000-word self-criticism and make a public apology under the national flag next Monday. A gentle horse is ridden. A kind person is bullied. What's this about taking a step back for a broader view in this new life? I refuse to endure such humiliation. These people think they're just being quick-witted, joining in the fun, and enjoying the drama, but they never consider that their abusive words are enough to drive a living person to their death. In my previous life, if Sherry Miller and her accomplices were the main culprits behind my death, then all those who hurled insults, spread rumors, and joined in the slander were their accomplices. This matter wasn't originally a big deal, but due to Sher Miller's scheming and miscalculations, it ended up involving too many people. So many students were taken away by the police that it directly alarmed the school administration. Some busybodies even recorded videos and posted them online. Before the truth could be clarified, public opinion had already begun to stir. In just a few hours, All sorts of things were being said online. By the time we finished giving our statements, the video had already gone viral. Locally, many parents of students received the news and started calling the school, asking what had happened. The school was overwhelmed and called the main individuals involved to the principal's office. This familiar place couldn't help but evoke memories from my previous life. At that time, I was subjected to rumors and photoshopped images that spread like wildfire online, causing a very negative impact on the school. The school administrators approached me with the intention of persuading me to voluntarily drop out. I refused, and they even resorted to threats and incentives to pressure me. Classmates, we are trying to discuss this with you properly now. If you refuse to listen, we will have to resort to extreme measures. Even if you refuse to leave, I guarantee you won't be able to get your graduation certificate. Are you really going to oppose us? I'm not afraid of their threats at all. At that time, I believed that justice would prevail in people's hearts. So, I firmly refused their demands. Principal, I will not drop out. I worked very hard to get into this university, and those rumors online have nothing to do with me. If you investigate seriously, you will surely uncover the truth. The innocent have nothing to fear. Instead of seeking the truth, you're urging me to drop out. I am deeply disappointed with your approach. Moreover, I have already reported this matter to the police. I believe they will deliver justice. Upon hearing that I had reported the incident to the police, the faces of the school administrators grew even more grim. The principal still wanted to argue with me, but the department had stopped him. After saying these words, seeing that no one spoke up, I sighed inwardly, ignoring their grim and gloomy expressions. I walked straight out of the office, because they had approached me quite late and had argued with me for a long time. When I came out, it was already around 800 in the evening. On the way back to the dormitory, I had to pass through a small grove of trees. Those troublemakers had been waiting there all along from their words. I also learned that their appearance was no coincidence. Someone had sent them those 3 hours. I endured inhuman torment, a nightmare that spanned 2 lifetimes. In my previous life, I was the one condemned by all. But in this life, it is Miller who stands at the center of the storm. Just now at the police station, Charles James, fearing legal consequences, confessed everything, including the fact that Miller had a miscarriage. During the interrogation, our department head was also present sitting in this familiar office. I felt completely calm. The principal's face was livid as he glared at the culprit with hatred. Miller, you've really outdone yourself. Getting pregnant, before marriage, having a miscarriage in the dormitory, and then trying to frame your roommate to ruin her reputation. Such a young age, yet so full of schemes. I don't want to say much more about this matter since it's blown up so big. You should voluntarily withdraw from school. Miller's face turned pale, and she instinctively glanced at the department head sitting in the best spot. I happened to catch her little gesture. I grew suspicious. What was going on between her and the department head? In an instant, a very important clue flashed through my mind. Brother Miller. Yes, the person the thugs mentioned as the mastermind was none other than Brother Miller. At the time, I thought he was a relative of Miller, but now connecting it with the department head's reaction when stopping the principal in my previous life, and that glance Miller just gave me. The head of this department happens to share the surname Miller. Moreover, he is also one of those responsible for campus security, connecting a few details. A certain answer seems to be gradually surfacing in my mind. Miller and Director Miller, they both share the surname Miller. There must be something fishy going on here. Director Miller was the one who instigated those thugs in my previous life. At this moment, Director Miller didn't dare to look at Sherry Miller at all. Instead, he sat on the sofa on the other side, lost in thought. Miller gritted her teeth, refusing to accept the principal's decision. Principal, this isn't entirely my fault. I don't agree to being expelled. If Rose Keller hadn't called the police today, none of this would have happened. It's all her fault for making a big deal out of nothing. Jang Ruoro, who had already fallen out with her at the police station, was now standing on the same side again, turning the spearhead toward me. That's right. Principal, it's all Rose Keller's fault. We were just joking around, but she had to blow it out of proportion. The two of them looked so indignant, as if they were the ones who had suffered the most. The principal hesitated and glanced at me, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. I curled my lips mockingly. I had originally intended to just watch the drama unfold, but now that it involved me, there was no way I could stay out of it. Let's all go down together joking. What kind of joke involves putting that kind of thing in my locker? And the two students from the next dorm room, who happened to be at the door, they confessed everything. It was Sher Miller who told them to stand guard at the entrance. If it was just a joke, then why did they start taking pictures of my locker and me as soon as they came in? And why did they deliberately draw so many people in reading those instructions out loud? Sherry Miller, you've chosen to degrade yourself and live an undisciplined private life. And now you're trying to drag me down with you to divert attention, aren't you? My well-organized words laid bare all her filthy thoughts. She froze, and the principal's expression turned grim. Director Miller, sitting to the side, kept his head lowered, silent like a quailed. Sher Miller opened her mouth. Principal, no, it's not like that. Miller, seeing Sher Miller about to drag him into it, Director Miller could no longer sit still. He rushed forward and slapped her across the face. Shut up, Sher Miller. Withdraw from school quietly, and don't cause any more trouble. If you make a mistake, you have to face the consequences. Don't cause trouble for the school. Sher Miller was slapped so hard that her head turned to the side, covering her face. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. After their gazes met, the light in her eyes dimmed. All right, I agreed to drop out. She's actually being disobedient after being reborn. Is she just going to give in like this? What happened next didn't differ much from what I had anticipated. Charles James received a major demerit, and her eligibility for awards and honors was revoked. Even her financial aid was taken away to compensate for the damage to my reputation. The school approved a scholarship for me, but I did not accept it. I still understood the principle that taking from others makes one indebted, and eating from others makes one soft. I wasn't short of that little money, and there was no need to leave any leverage in their hands. The matter of framing someone seemed to have been settled. Sher Miller dropped out of school. I heard she's planning to return to her hometown. Lisa Mitchell is still recovering from her injuries in the hospital, and Charles James has moved out of the dormitory. You know, I'm the only one left in this dormitory. A few days later, a girl from the computer science department moved, and she seems a bit introverted, doesn't talk much, and spends all day holding a laptop, typing away at who knows what. Usually, if I don't initiate, she won't speak, and since I'm already busy with a lot of things and spend very little time in the dorm, I never really felt anything was off. However, on the rare occasions when I come back late, even if she's already asleep, she'll leave the light on for me. Sometimes I get so busy with student council work that I don't have time to eat, and she even brings a meal up for me. The dorm's cleanliness has also visibly improved. Even the air feels much fresher between us. There's a sense of harmony and understanding. This peaceful life was shattered a month later on the campus website. Someone posted a set of photos. They were all explicit and indecent photos of me in high definition. But I knew very well that these were definitely not taken by me. Thinking of those photos from my previous life, I instantly understood this was definitely photoshopped. But the editing skills in this life were clearly much more refined. It was obvious at a glance that it was done by a professional. And as for the person behind it, I didn't even need to think. I knew it had to be Sher Miller. I'm really fed up with this crazy woman. After she dropped out, I thought as long as she didn't bother me, I'd let bygones be bygones. I didn't want to create unnecessary trouble for myself. I just wanted to live each day well from then on. After all, for a girl like her, who had struggled to make her way out of the countryside, being expelled and having it on her record meant her future was ruined. That was punishment enough. I never expected she would still dare to cause trouble for me. In that case, don't blame me for being ruthless. I called my dad and asked him to transfer a large sum of money to me. Despite my usual frugality, my dad didn't find it strange that I suddenly needed so much money. Instead, he felt relieved. "My dear daughter, you're finally willing to spend money properly, aren't you? Dad always told you to go out and have fun, but you kept saying you needed to stay low-key. Now you've finally come around. Is 500,000 enough? Or should I round it up to 1 million for you?" The excited voice on the other end of the phone nearly brought me to tears. After everything I went through in my past life, I was afraid of worrying them. I thought I could handle it on my own, and believed that justice would prevail, that no innocent person would be wronged. So I didn't tell them anything about what had happened to me until I fell from the building. They had no idea what kind of torment their daughter had endured at school at the moment I fell. I was still worried about how devastated they would be. After all, I was their only daughter if I died. I couldn't imagine how hopeless they would feel. Fortunately, heaven has given me a chance to live my life over again. I don't plan to tell them about my past life, so as not to make them sad. But I told them everything that happened in this life, exactly as it was. After hearing my story, the old man nearly exploded with anger. "My dear daughter, Dad will handle this for you. How dare they bully my daughter? They must be tired of living. I'll crush them with my money if I have to." I quickly reassured him. "Dad, just leave this to me. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing." He was reluctant and still a bit worried, but in the end, I managed to calm him down, and he agreed not to intervene. After receiving the money, I contacted the detective and asked them to investigate Sher Miller and Director Miller for me. Soon I received the information. After going through it, even though I had mentally prepared myself, I was still shocked. It turned out that Sher Miller was Director Miller's adopted daughter. But these two had an improper relationship. The child Sher Miller had aborted belonged to Director Miller. This information truly came at the perfect time. After checking the information, I had someone trace the IP address of that post. And sure enough, it led to the rental apartment where Sher Miller currently lives. I was just about to find someone to delete the post. But when I clicked in again, I found the content of the post had changed. The text had turned into an expose of the scandal between Sher Miller and Director Miller. The pictures had also been replaced with their explicit private photos, all in high definition. As for my previous photos, a professional comparative analysis was posted under the latest comment, proving that they were photoshopped, and the female lead in the original photo was none other than Sher Miller. This shocking twist caused the Cabus forum to explode, and it was even reposted across the city. Within just a few hours, the content of this post had spread like wildfire online. If it were only about Sher Miller, it might not have been such a big deal. But the other person involved in this incident was actually a department head at our university. The school's reputation has been completely shattered. Interestingly, when my photoshopped image was exposed, the school remained completely silent. However, after the post was edited, the school suddenly panicked and frantically tried to have it deleted. But no matter what they did, the post simply couldn't be removed as if it had been infected by a virus. Not only that, but anyone connected to the school's campus network, whether on their phones or computers, received a file. This file contained more detailed, unspeakable secrets all about Sher Miller and Director Miller's scandalous affairs. As a result, even those who didn't usually browse the campus forum or go online were forced to get a taste of the gossip. I stared at the files still in my hand, which I hadn't had the chance to send out, feeling completely bewildered. Could it be that my dad stepped in? I called him, and he said it wasn't him. I was even more confused. Who could this great person be? Soon I found out who was behind this. The school administration came to our dorm. I thought they were here for me, but it turned out they were looking for my new roommate, Lily. As soon as the principal entered, he knelt directly in front of her. "Student Lily, please stop and delete that post if this continues. The school's reputation will be ruined by me," he cried, tears and snot streaming down his face, looking utterly pathetic. Meanwhile, our protagonist, Lily, turned his gaze toward me. "Principal, it's not me you should be begging, but Rose Keller. When she was being cyberbullied, you all stood by and did nothing, letting public opinion run wild, without ever considering how much this would affect her. What? Now that it's the school's turn, you're starting to get nervous. You all are such hypocrites. My blood was boiling all over my body. She actually knew everything. It's actually her. To say I'm not moved would be a lie. We only spent a month together. Yet she stood up to the school for me. Tears welled up in my eyes. And, without caring about the school leaders still present, I rushed forward and hugged her tightly. Lily, thank you. In the end, the school had to expel and blacklist Director Miller as the price to get Lily to delete the post. They had originally hoped to ask her to help control the other online discussions, but she refused. Principal, your indifference must come at a cost, right? The school's atmosphere is in need of a cleanup. Finally, the principal and a series of related leaders were all thoroughly investigated, and many were removed from their positions. Director Miller was also found guilty of accepting bribes, and a case from many years ago was also linked to him. Sure, Miller's parents in the countryside are disabled. Originally, they were also skilled workers at a factory, with good income and benefits, which could have allowed Sure Miller to live a worry-free life. But all of this was ruined by Director Miller. One night, while driving under the influence, he crashed into Sure Miller's parents, who were riding a motorcycle, leaving them permanently disabled. Because it was a mountain road, and there were no surveillance cameras around to escape punishment, he found someone suffering from cancer to take the blame for him. To ease his conscience, he sponsored Sure Miller and took her in as his goddaughter. As time passed, Sure Miller grew more and more beautiful, and, with her vanity, the two eventually became involved. When this matter came to light, Sure Miller completely broke down. On the day Director Miller was sentenced, just as he was about to be taken away in a police car to prison, Sure Miller rushed forward and stabbed him 8 times, each strike fatal. Director Miller died on the spot, and in her frantic escape, she was hit and sent flying by a speeding truck. She finally landed on the truck in front, which was loaded with steel needles and iron plates. 1,000 needles pierced her body, turning her into a sieve. Upon learning of her fate, Lisa Mitchell and Charles James were plagued by nightmares every day, eventually suffering from mental breakdowns and dropping out of school voluntarily. The villains all met their deserved ends, but the story between Lily and me was just beginning. After hearing the stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comment section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.